Hey art gang, so I'm just loving the hand mould watercolour paint trend that's going on at the moment. Have you spotted it? There's been a bloom of people making their own watercolour paints and then selling them over on places like Etsy, and you might have seen that, you know, there's been a lot of handmade watercolour paint swatch videos here on YouTube, and they seem to be multiplying as well. Well, I've been pretty fascinated by the whole handmade art materials thing. I mean, the idea of being able to completely control your materials and design them exactly the way that you want them, it's very compelling, isn't it? But, you know, I think it's a whole craft to learn in itself. So at the moment, I'm just really happy to try out the lovely handmade materials from my fellow artists. And today I've bought some from KWARTSCreations. Maybe it's KWARTSCreations. I'm not really sure how to pronounce that. Yeah, KWARTSCreations sounds probably that's how you're supposed to pronounce it. And if you saw my Abstract Friday post, then you've already seen one of the pieces that I've done using these watercolours. I bought this glorious fluorescent set from Katie's shop because, well, I have a massive weak spot for fluorescence and I don't have any fluorescent watercolour pigment paints. I mean, it's kind of a ridiculous obsession to have fluorescents, as they're not in the slightest bit light fast. You just don't get fluorescent colours that are light fast. And they're impossible to really get a good photo or a scan of, aren't they? But I just love them. Can't get enough of them. And just playing with these paints brought me so much joy. So, well, you know, what am I going to do? I had to get them. And these paints, they're really lovely. They reconstitute, well, the ones that I've had anyway, have reconstituted really well with water and are instantly workable and have a great pigment load as well. And for these particular ones, she's using a Sennelier pigment. And I like that she tells you that in her Etsy description. It generally says where the pigment has come from. Sometimes she doesn't, but in other cases she does. And she'll also say what kind of light fast it's got as well, which is nice and very handy. And from what I gather from her Etsy and her Instagram, she is very into the mineral source of pigments too. They're really cutely wrapped, aren't they? Now, as soon as I started working with these, I just fell in love with them, and I spotted that Katie had what she called a sketching set, which has traditional sketching materials like charcoal, graphite, sepia and sanguine, but in a watercolour paint format. So, well, I just had to get those as well. Of course I did. And just like the fluorescent set, they are really lovely to work with. Now, before you start wondering, I am not sponsored in any way by KWARTSCreations. Katie, you'll have to tell me if I'm pronouncing that right. No, so this is all me. I bought these and it is my latest arty obsession that I wanted to share with you guys. And I've tried a couple of other handmade watercolours too. So, you know, they've been popping up all over the place. And you've probably seen the ones from DesignsByRachelBeth, as her watercolours have been big here on YouTube, and, you know, a lot of YouTubers have been talking about them, and also over on Instagram too. And then I've also tried some from A Sea of Grass as well. So shout if you would like me to review those brands too, because I'm happy to do it. But also let me know if you found any people making their own handmade art materials, because I would love to hear all about it, and if you've got any recommendations, that would be fantastic. And of course I'll put links to Quartz Creation paints and also the other ones that I've mentioned in the description too, so you can go and get your hands on them or just go and check them out as you wish. Now, it was actually the DesignsByRachelBeth paints that got me hooked into this, because I was pretty much spotting them everywhere I went, and that's how obsessions work, isn't it? They start following you around, don't they? And everyone was talking about them, you know, say everyone, but lots of people were talking about them. So I bought those first and tried them out, but because I'm UK based, I also searched for some UK artists making their own paints as well, and that's how I found these. Now, with the sketching set, when I tried that one out, I thought I would try a few textures to see how they would work in the ways that I like to use them. So after just doing a bit of a kit swatch, just, you know, that first swatch, I also just did a bit of random play and trying them out in different ways. I'm really keen on trying these out as an actual drawing set, but I haven't concentrated on it yet. I haven't sat down to do that. And I've just been using them for making textures and the abstracts that you know that I love to do because, well, you know, that's totally in my comfort zone and a great way to try out a new material on something that you're quite happy to do. But I will push myself out of my comfort zone and do some proper sketching with these at some point soon, I'm sure. So as well as these two sets that I bought, I also got myself a single teal, which is another huge weakness because I love teals. And also when I bought these in my package was a few dot cards as well, so got to try those out. So I'll swatch these all out for you. Now I really should have gone with an ordinary watercolour brush to do this, but my mop brush was kind of sitting on my desk, so I grabbed for that. And a mop brush is really good at holding loads of water, so there's probably a little bit too much water for just some ordinary swatching, but still, you know, it shows you how the paints will kind of work in a wash, so it gives you that kind of feel anyway. Usually when I swatch, I'll do a saturated part and a light wash part just to sort of see how the two work and, you know, how much pigment you get in the paint. But it's harder to do with a mop brush. But, you know, you get the idea. And the black lines will hopefully give you an idea of the opacity of the paints as well as we work along. Now I love that you get some granulation with the graphite and the charcoal too, and they're lovely, and they kind of are more towards the opaque side. And then the sepia has a really lovely two-tone going on, which kind of comes out more when it's dry and in areas where you've got a lot of pigment, so that's quite fun to play with. With the fluorescence, I'm getting a grainy look once these paints are dry. That doesn't seem to be granulation, and I think it might actually be pigment floating, and it was particularly noticeable with the electric blue, but I don't know if it's more to do with the paper that I'm using, as it seems a little less noticeable on a better quality paper than this one. So it was still there in the better quality one, but you could kind of ignore it and wouldn't see it. But it's quite an interesting texture anyway. And I have nothing to compare these two, so I don't have any pigment fluorescent watercolour paints, as I said, only dye-based ones, and they're going to behave completely differently anyway. So I didn't know what to expect with the Sennelier fluorescent pigments, so it's going to be fun to work with these some more and experiment and learn about them just a little bit more too. Now the teal and the malachite are beautiful colours, so lovely, but you know, because I am a bit of a teal freak, I am going to love them anyway. Now, okay, so the next one, I could get in trouble for pronouncing this because I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but the fuchsite, yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's how you pronounce it, maybe that's not, but that one and the epidote are, well, they're a little bit gloopy and grainy for my liking, and I would need to sort of work with them more to kind of work out how to work with these kind of watercolour paints that have that kind of texture. But I also noticed that the fuchsite and the epidote, as well as the graphite, all had a kind of sparkle to them under my daylight bulb studio lighting, and you can't pick it up in the natural light, but in the evening when I had all my lights on in the studio, I could definitely pick it up then. So yeah, I've been using these for some of my abstract work and just combining the brightness of that fluorescence with that lovely neutral colour from the sketching set, and there's something about that combination that I just absolutely love. And that sort of counterpoint of the super glow bright with the dark, it just, I don't know, it just works really well, doesn't it? So I will sit down at some point with this sketching set and, you know, try and do some proper actual sketching rather than my usual sort of just throwing paint around, which I do love doing. And yeah, it goes everywhere. I've got paint on the ceiling, paint on the walls. Actually, don't tell anyone, shh. And I can't wait to hear your recommendations for handmade art materials. So if you found any really good ones or you make some good ones yourself, do let me know. If you want some more watercolour inspiration, then watch this playlist next and I will see you over there.